Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for day 31 for the 26th of March, and not I don't know, I have to stop saying there's not a lot that have happened, but yeah, there is some things that have happened this time. Okay, so to me this is of significance. There's actually a report from the Defense Ministry of Russia that they shot down a Mi-24. I think this is Hein, or I may be wrong. Okay. Anyway, the helicopter was shot down over at Stara Basan. So because of this, and previously Stara Basan wasn't listed under the Russian control. I actually added this Russian position. So the surface to air missile is actually stationed at Stara Basan, and they actually shot down this helicopter. Not sure why the helicopter is there. Maybe they are trying to infiltrate and try to drop some commandos or infiltrators or saboteurs, whatever, behind enemy lines. So they got shot down, and that just made the non-existent air force even more non-existent. The Russians also captured this village or town of Olyshivka. So this is from the Russian source. They said that the Russian special force or reconnaissance group sees an artillery depot near Chernihiv, which is basically here. If you say near, it's still 25 kilometers away. Not sure if that's considered near. Near if you drive. So what happens is that they actually is a small reconnaissance group, but they actually created this sense of appearance of a large scale offensive in the position. So the Ukrainian troops fled and retreated. They leave behind all the ammunition. So based on the photo, which I forgot to put it here, they are all artillery shells. So it's not very interesting anyway. So you can I think I may have put it into the Telegram group. You may want to go there and check it out. Not group, channel, Telegram channel. So this is the Kyiv Front. Okay. Also, the Russian forces captured Slavutych. Previously I already listed this under Russian control, so somehow that it wasn't exactly under Russian control. So they made a deal with the mayor of this town or city. This looks like a mini city or a small town. So this town made a deal with the Russians. So the Russians say that as long as there's no Ukrainian military within this town, and they surrender all automatic weapons, they can keep the handguns, I think. But they demanded all automatic weapons to be surrendered, and they will leave the entire town alone. So they agreed and made that deal. So they did have some this rally by the Ukrainians in the town. So they carry the flags and march and then curse at the Russian troops. Is I wonder if they ever wondered why the Russians do not shoot at them, uh, despite them cursing at them. So anyway, the fight continued in Chernihiv. Uh, I don't have a lot of information in terms of how they actually fighting, but I do know that there's a lot of bombardment. There's a lot of smoke coming out from the city. There is no news regarding Kiev and Bravori. There is some troops surrendered around here. I think it's Mykolaiv. So Ukrainian forces they have this command post or something that got discovered, and then they surrendered. It's not very important because it's still largely Russian control. This surrendering of troops is very common across all fronts from both sides. So this is actually nothing very special, but I just want to mention it in case someone say I never talk about it. And the entire encirclement or the major counteroffensive is basically either invalidated or basically mooted. Basically there's no point to it, or they have actually totally failed. because as far as the Ministry of not say Ministry of Defense, they call it the the chief staff of the Ukrainian armed forces or something like that. In their reports, they have never mentioned an offense on the Kiev side. It was the way how they describe is always defensive. They are always under attack by the Russians, and they are always repelling the Russians. They never mention anything about the offensive. There's not enough evidence to show that there is actually some major offensive going on, and and also the Ukrainians don't seem to have captured anything. The battles were always around Irpin, Bucha, Hostomel, and Mushchun. Basically, this skirmish over here continues for already 4 weeks. So basically the situation in the Kyiv Front actually have no change in this sense. So somewhat disappointed, because for once I wanted to believe the Ukrainians, and I even tried to find evidence that the major counteroffensive is true. However, it feels like I got duped again by the Ukrainians. So it's very hard to imagine a major counteroffensive and you're not even capturing anything. And if you are saying that, oh, they captured Mykolaiv, the Russians have never said they captured Mykolaiv, just to counterbalance that thought. So that's that. So anyway, moving on to Sumy Front, nothing. The Ukrainians declared they have captured Trostyanets, but I actually have already announced this before. So they seems to like they quoted a Facebook post or something, and then they declared this again. But there's also a Russian analyst saying that there is actually fighting at Trostyanets, and the analyst, that Russian analyst or whoever, they say the fighting is in the south of the city, which actually kind of weird, because if the city is taken by the Ukrainians, and that is also how I interpreted this information days ago, the fighting should be in the north, right? So somehow the fighting is in the south. So not sure what to believe. So we just gonna leave it at that. Moving on to Kharkiv, nothing happens. No one left Kharkiv. They just bombard it, and nothing else here as well. Coming to Izyum, the Russian forces have captured Kamyanka as well as Sukha Kamyanka. This kind of corroborated and validated the claims by the Russians that they have captured Izyum, and this also kind of create an additional protection for this city. Not sure if they have still have control over Topolsky. However, there is report of bombardment on Bavinkov. So because the Russians have discovered military positions, and they have fired on it. So I'm not sure what they hit specifically, but the Ukrainian side, they actually reported 5 deaths, 4 soldiers and 1 civilian. But because I don't indicate bombardments, so there's nothing here. So moving on to Severodonetsk, Lysychansk Front. There is this report of a Ukrainian offensive or counteroffensive in the south of Rubizhne. So the Ukrainians are starting to find trouble in Rubizhne again, and as well as the bombardment on Rubizhne continue from the Ukrainian side. The Ukrainians are firing their artillery into Rubizhne, while the Russians are trying to, Russians or the Luhansk forces is trying to evacuate the civilians away from this city. So that's what's happening here. No news on Severodonetsk. Popasna is still a mess. Street-to-street fightings, and the situation is still unclear. Despite the Donetsk, no, the Luhansk forces previously mentioned that they have captured the city probably around a week ago by now. In the end, they still did not really fully control the city. Moving further south, we have reports of fighting at Novoselivka, Novobakhmutivka, and also Krasnohorivka. So these two is previously already mentioned. You see the dated is 22nd. No news about whether they have actually captured this position. The only Ukrainian position is actually here, in this junction over here. So with this junction, they kind of mentioned these two towns. And there is a report from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine that there is a offensive on Krasnohorivka. So the Krasnohorivka. So which could mean that this position have been destroyed, but I'm not going to commit to this yet. As for this part, previously there's some Ukrainian positions. I have already deleted them because the Russians actually mentioned that they are now fighting for Novoselivka as well as Novobakhmutivka. These two locations is described by the Russians as strongholds. So I put Ukrainian stronghold according to the wordings used by the Russians. No progress at Avdiivka. Apparently the capture of Mariupol is not complete. The fighting still continues at Mariupol, where the Donetsk forces is crawling across the entire front here. So previously they actually captured sorry for my sound, for my voice, somewhere around here, and they're slowly moving forward because this entire area is heavily fortified. It's not even for people to live. It's basically just a fortification. So they are clearing one pillbox by one pillbox, one trench by one trench. They are slowly crawling through. So the claim that it was captured maybe it's a bit premature because they can't even get out of the city at this moment. So this is what and they are also harassed by the Ukrainians on the south of it. So not sure if the Ukrainian forces actually reinforcing at all, or they left them for dead. So not too sure about that. Oh shit, there's another Krasnohorivka here. So who is the real Krasnohorivka now? Never mind, we're just gonna leave it here first for now. So the Russian continue to try to fight for Novoselivka. This, as you can see, this 26 March 8 p.m. Information, where they are actually still fighting to capture this village. So that's Donetsk Front. Down to Zaporizhzhia Line. So if you haven't followed me much earlier, I have actually named these 4 positions as the Zaporizhzhia Line. So because these 4 positions actually protects this entire vital resupply route coming out from Zaporizhzhia to the Eastern Front. So these 4 positions are heavily defended by the Ukrainian forces. So there is yesterday I mentioned that the Ukrainians captured the town of Mykolaiv, and then today the new information say they have captured Poltavka. So the Russian sources, the Russian analysts or whoever, they say that the Russians have never claimed to have captured these 2 towns or these 2 villages. So they are basically saying that the Ukrainians are bullshitting by capturing towns that is actually unoccupied by the Russians. So no idea who is saying the truth. So the battle continues for Huiaipo. There is a report I think it's the Russian sources saying that the fighting is in the south and southeast. No, east and southeast of Huyaipo. East and southeast of Huyaipo, the fighting is around there. I'm not sure that it means in the open or in the villages around, or it's actually at the edge of the city. So no idea what is that. So anyway, I didn't indicate, but at least I mentioned to you here. On Mariupol, there is chatters from the Ukrainian forces, from the Russian sources that the residential area here at Novobakhmutivka has been liberated, and then the Ukrainian forces have all retreated into the industrial area. I cannot verify this, so I did not change the map, but I want to inform you that the way they kind of map their maps also seems to suggest that this entire area have no more Ukrainian forces, and the Ukrainian forces is actually largely stuck within this area, and this area. But I felt that if I do that, that might be misleading because I have no actually evidence of that being the case, other than the mapping by other analysts. So I'm not going to commit to that as well. But I want to let you know that there is a possibility that the Ukrainians are now limited into this area, and this area. There are also a lot of reports from the Russian sources of Ukrainian troops trying to run out of the city, and then they got caught. And then there's actually a high ranking of one of the, I think, battalions or something. The officer was caught. I shared the post on the Telegram, so you may want to check it out. I'm not sure if it's true because I don't really trust this kind of information, because it's very prone to propaganda and misinformation. No news regarding Kryvih Rih. The distance between the forces is 20 to 30 kilometers. 30 kilometers. Although some of them say it's only 15 to 20 kilometers. Not sure if they actually creep forward. I didn't actually see any Russian sources mentioning anything about this force here. There is also some chatters within the DPA Discord saying that there is actually no more forces north of Mykolaiv. This is possible because I really didn't hear anything about Kashmir or Mykolaiv for like a long time. And it's conceivable that this this forward operating base is gone, because it's been so long, and then it's very hard to resupply them. The Russian map, the official Russian defense ministry map actually map it that they actually know there's this, the Russians actually control all the way here, this area. I'm not going to follow that because I have no evidence of them encircling the city at this current moment. The fighting here at Olyshivka had kind of run out of news. There's like nothing is heard about it anymore. So there's nothing heard about the fighting at Mini as well as Posad-Pokrovske. There's rumors saying that the Ukrainians are at the edge of Kherson. I think, don't know which, I forgot which news media reported that. I don't think that is true. Someone shared a very interesting YouTube channel where there's a person in Kherson reporting daily, posting on YouTube, showing the situation in Kherson. So I saw like he actually went shopping. They showed videos of the price of the food. He talked about the price of the food and stuff like that. And he's basically living life very normally in Kherson. If that's the case, then I don't think there's fighting at Kherson, which kinds of invalidated any possibility of the Ukrainians actually sieging the city at all. So no news regarding these guys as well. So we have covered the front lines. In terms of some bombardments, you may want to know the Russians have hit at least 5 different locations and one of the major one is at Lviv because the reporters are there, and they hit the one of the fuel depot there, and also they hit multiple other storage facilities of different stuff like fuel or ammunition, which I don't really care because it's not meaningful to track them. And there's one of them I think hit Dubno here, so all these missile strikes are going to exacerbate the resupply problems that the Ukrainians going to have, and it doesn't matter what kind of arms they are going to bring into Ukraine because they need to bring in fuel. Without the fuel, all the surface-to-air missile is going to stop working. The armor is going to stop working. The tanks are going to stop working. Perhaps even the logistics is going to stop working, which means you can't do resupply, you can't do reinforcement, you can't do maneuvers, you cannot move troops around, and then effectively the Ukrainian force will just become a World War One army. So not ideal. So, but that's what the Russians are going for. And I want to also update. There's a UAV gotten shot down over the Black Sea. That was reportedly flying towards Sevastopol. So two surface-to-air missiles was actually captured by multiple videos firing from Sevastopol. And the Ukrainian official statement was that we do not have any missiles that have the range to fly to Sevastopol. So whatever it is, two surface-to-air missiles confirmed to have flown out, and the Russian Ministry of Defense say that they actually fired at UAV and the UAV got shot down. Remember the naval mines? So the Turkish Coast Guard or some people actually discovered a floating mine close to the entrance to the Bosphorus Straits. And I believe I saw another source writing that a second naval mine was discovered. So this naval mine is going to start causing some problems. They floated all the way from Odessa all the way here now, and actually apparently two of them is now discovered. From what I remember seeing, the Turkish government is now contacting the Ukrainian defense minister or something to talk about this. So I'm not sure what they want the Ukrainians to do. The Ukrainians don't even control the sea anymore. So maybe they want to meet to say, because of your mine, we're going to raise the price of the TB2 by 2 times, maybe. So anyway, there is also, let me see. So that's basically covered all the changes and developments around the situation on the ground. So yesterday the Russians made this big statement about a lot of people call it the end of the phase 1. For me, that is not the end of the phase 1. That's basically they just reporting the situation at day 30. If you ask me what is phase 1, the phase 1 is actually to secure all this position now that you're seeing here, this entire front line, as well as this front line here. This is phase 1. And they actually did it within 10 days, to be honest. So since then, it's just, if you really want to put it into phases, we are now still within phase 2. The phase 2 is to destroy all the means of resupplying and all the supply bases and all the military facilities, as well as trying to create this pincer movement to encircle the entire East Army. That's phase 2. So phase 2 is going to be a very, very long phase. I don't view it as after 30 days this is the end of phase 1. So now I'm going to tell you we are going to focus on Eastern Front. I think that is delusional, because the situation have been like this for the past 15 days. So go and watch the video that I just posted, the review of the first 30 days of the war, where we go from day 1 to day 29. And you will probably see quite clearly that the borders don't really change much for at least 15 days. So that means this situation have not really exactly changed. the focus had always been on Donbass. So the newspapers, the mainstream medias are just trying to create headlines so that you will click and watch it, and they're just nonsense, bullshitting. No, if you ask me, because you and we have been following this war on a daily basis. We know that there's totally no change in terms of the situation on the ground. That largely the fight is all here. This is all the main action is. Everything else is just extra. This is where the focus of the Russian forces actually is. So there's also another talk, especially by some of the comments in the YouTube, as well as people outside. They were saying, why would the Russians tell the Ukrainians their plan, that their focus is actually on Donbass? So this is also again a sign of the lack of understanding on the situation in Ukraine. The entire operation, this military operation, primary focus is to liberate the Donbass. And the Eastern Army, the entire Eastern Front, is a heavily fortified front, congruent front. And for the Russians to actually break through here, this is actually quite a huge feat, if you ask me. And the main front in the center here, the center Eastern Front, is the one that is the strongest. And at the moment, you can see that if you have followed me for at least 2 weeks, you will realize that this entire front here is extremely difficult to break. The Russian Donetsk and Luhansk forces have not been managed to do a lot of breakthroughs around here. They have some limited breakthroughs, like in Olyshivka and off Olyshivka, but generally speaking, it's extremely difficult to break through this defense line, which is actually a defense in depth. So you can defeat the first line, but then there's actually another defense line behind it, and then there's another defense line behind it. So as such, the focus had always been here. So why the Russians saying all these things now? Mainly it's basically just reporting what's happening. Usually the Russians are very honest. Of course, the problem with the Russians is you have to focus on what they actually don't say. It's not about what they say. What they say is usually honest, but it's what they don't say. So what they don't say, for example, they lose certain positions, they lose certain units. That's things that they don't say, and that's the thing that we should try to find out. So, and the other thing is that the war have arrived at such a situation where it does not matter what the Russians say. The Russians can tell exactly how they're going to destroy Ukraine. To the Ukrainians, they basically can just email them the entire battle plan, and there's nothing the Ukrainians can do, like for a fact. At this current moment, given the kind of the destruction of all the supply chains and all the facilities, the destruction of the air force, and the kind of positions that the Russians have put themselves in, as well as the momentum of war on the Eastern Front, that there is nothing the Ukrainians can do. The initiative is actually not on the Ukrainian side. They do not have enough logistics now. They are probably very low on fuel. The ammunitions are probably very heavy on the western side. They are unable to deliver to the Eastern Front. They are trapped here at Kiev. They are trapped at Chernihiv. They are trapped at Kharkiv, and they are trapped at Mykolaiv. They are also heavily trying to protect Zaporizhzhia. They are unable to resupply the Eastern Front and to effectively move troops and supplies across the entire of Ukraine. So who is having the supply line problem? I seriously don't think the Russians know having supply line problems anymore. They have the problem, definitely they have supply line problems in the first 2 weeks, because they were trying to secure all these frontal objective, all these fronts that they were trying to secure, and they are stretching themselves to do it in the shortest time possible. So the supply line was very stretched, and a lot of Ukrainian forces is behind enemy lines. So by now this no longer the case, and Ukrainians are now having the supply line problems. And I checked the weather, and the infamous muddy season is going to come, I think, in a week's time, because the wet season, the wet weather seems to be coming on the coming Friday. So we have another week to go before everything turns muddy. And this is going to be even worse for the Ukrainians, not for the Russians that much, but actually worse for the Ukrainians, because the Ukrainians are the one that have to transport stuff from Poland here, off Lviv and Lutsk, all the way for at least 500 kilometers to the Kyiv Front, and another like 700 kilometers to 800 kilometers to the Mykolaiv Front. And we are not even talking about, the front at Kharkiv, which is 800 kilometers away, Zaporizhzhia, which is 900 kilometers away, and the Eastern Front, which is 1,000 kilometers away. So, and we are talking about the Ukrainians have hardly much of an air force left. And I want to add another point about no-fly zone. The Ukrainians keep asking for a no-fly zone. I just want to add a point on that. There is an effective no-fly zone over Ukraine since the very beginning of the war. From day one, there's a no-fly zone implemented in Ukraine, but it's not by NATO. It's implemented by the Russians, which is why until today, the two Russian planes, the two Turkish planes is still stuck here in Borispil, the two Turkish military planes. Until today, they are still stuck there. Why? Because there is a no-fly zone implemented over the entire of Ukraine by the Russians. And the Russians have warned that any foreign planes flying into Ukraine will be a legitimate target, which is why the NATO forces or the NATO countries did not even dare to resupply Ukraine via air, because flying into Ukraine will be seen as an act of war by the Russians. That's why even the delivery of the TB2 in yesterday's summary, they flew around Hungary and then go to Poland, and then they have to transport it through vehicle. They are not going to fly into Ukraine, so that is a no-fly zone. So this is the irony about no-fly zones, that there is actually a no-fly zone in Ukraine. As much as you may not like it, is not by NATO, but it's by the Russians. So I hope that I kind of addressed the entire as much as I can regarding the additional points that raised regarding the Russian Defense Ministry's summary of the 30 days operation. You can dispute whatever you want. The fact of the ground is all this territory is now currently held by the Russians. That's a fact. It doesn't matter if you think they are successful or not successful, or if the Russian forces, like how the Ukrainians like to describe them, as demoralized and all giving up. Effectively, it sounds like they are all having clinical depression. It does not matter, because even if they have the clinical depression, you can't even fight them back. Then you must be having more depression than the depression suffered by the Russian soldiers. So that is not good, bro. It's actually bad for branding, right? When you say that the enemy is suffering from severe morale issue, and then you can't even defeat them and push them back. So that is rather ugly. So anyway, this is just the summary for the day 31 of this Russo-Ukrainian war, and or Russian not a war. Anyway, this is for day 31, and I will see you in the next update.